He called my father a traitor, then handed me his diary, still wet with blood. And that was just the beginning. I started thinking back to when it all began. The hallway reeked of smoke and ammonia. Burnt wires dangled from the ceiling like dead snakes. Apartment H12 was now a blackened hole in the wall. My father's apartment, or what was left of it. Neighbors whispered downstairs. An old man with nicotine fingers and a Yankees cap looked up at me as I stepped over the caution tape. "You his son?" he said. "Then this belongs to you." He pressed something into my hands, a plastic bag, damp, warm. I opened it later, in my car, hands still shaking. Inside, a scorched leather journal, the cover warped by heat, pages stuck together, some charred, some smeared with something dark, blood or ink, I couldn't tell. But on the bottom corner, etched in the familiar looping script I hadn't seen in 20 years, was my father's name. My chest tightened. I hadn't said it aloud in years, as if saying it might conjure his ghost. He disappeared when I was 15. Grocery run. Never came back. No note. No accident. No answers. Just void. I spent years building a life around that void, learned to say words like closure and grief trajectory, lied to therapists, drank, rebuilt, moved on, or convinced myself I had. And now this. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a text popped up. "You weren't supposed to find that. Walk away." I stared at the screen until it went black. A second message followed. "Don't trust anyone. Especially her." Her? I looked back at the apartment building. Flames had licked the walls clean. The kitchen window where my father once made me hot cocoa was just a jagged hole now. And yet, the journal had survived. Someone had meant for me to have it, or had tried to stop me from finding it too late. I flipped it open. First page. "If you're reading this, they've found me. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left to protect you." The handwriting shook by the end of the line. The ink bled into the corner. There was something etched faintly into the leather underneath the text, a hexagonal symbol, like an arrow struck through a circle. I snapped a photo and sent it to Jordan, a friend who used to work federal cases. He called instantly. "Where the hell did you find this?" "My father's old place. There was a fire." Jordan was quiet. Then, "That symbol? It's tied to something called Operation Phoenix." "Off books. Never confirmed. You're in danger, Eli." "I thought my dad was a music teacher," I whispered. "He played piano. He liked Bill Evans and cheap red wine. He wasn't—" Jordan cut in. "He was more than you knew, and if he mentioned her, you need to be careful who you talk to." The journal fell open again in my lap. Toward the back, a page half burned, only one line still legible. "If they ever come for my son, it means they're still watching." I didn't breathe for several seconds. Then, slowly, I looked up through the windshield. A black SUV was parked across the street, engine running, windows tinted, and I realized this wasn't about finding my father anymore. It was about surviving what he left behind. The SUV was gone by morning. I barely slept. The journal sat on the coffee table like a ticking bomb. I didn't touch it, just circled it all night, pacing, glancing at the windows, flinching at every sound. My apartment had never felt so loud. The refrigerator hum, the neighbor's baby crying, the faint groan of old pipes like whispers in the walls. At 6:03 a.m., I opened the journal again. August 9th, 2003. They found out about Halberd. Carr is deeper than I thought. If I disappear, it won't be an accident, no matter what they say. I circled the name, Carr. The same Carr who now stood on every billboard in New York, smiling like the country's savior. William Carr, ex-councilman, ex-mayor, now a serious contender for vice president. My stomach clenched. I pulled up an old photo online, a campaign event from 2002, and there he was, background stage left, my father, smiling, shaking hands. It didn't make sense. My father wasn't political. He hated suits. He once told me politics were just expensive theater for men who never learned to tell the truth. So why was he standing behind William Carr? I remembered a night, summer before Dad vanished. I'd woken up late to get water, heard voices downstairs, low, urgent. This isn't what we agreed on. You signed it. You said it was just intel. Long pause. We're already compromised, Jonah. Then silence, and the sound of the back door shutting. When I came down the next morning, Dad acted like nothing had happened. Pancakes, jazz on the record player. But his hands trembled when he passed me the syrup. Back then I thought he was just tired. Now I wasn't sure. I texted Jordan, "Did my father ever work for the government?" He replied almost instantly, "He's not in any known database, but that doesn't mean he wasn't involved. Phoenix files were shredded in 2006. Anything that survived is buried deep." I stared at the word Phoenix. It kept repeating in the journal, sometimes in capital letters, sometimes in code. PX7, PHX drop, ASH protocols. What was he involved in? What the hell had he done? A knock at the door. I froze. Another knock. Louder. "Eli, it's me." Her voice. I hadn't seen Julia in 3 years. My father's former colleague, family friend. She used to bring us groceries after he vanished. Stayed late. Too late. I remember my mother asking her once why she always smelled like his cologne. I opened the door slowly. Julia looked older, more tired, but her eyes scanned me with the same quiet precision she'd always had. She saw the journal on the table. "You opened it." I said nothing. "You shouldn't have." "Did you know?" I asked. My voice cracked. She stepped inside, didn't answer. I took a step back. "My father wrote about you. Don't trust her." Those were his words. Her mouth twitched. "Then why let me in?" "Because I didn't know what else to do." She walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside. "They'll come back. They always do." "Who are they?" She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something like fear in her face. "They're not after you because of your father," she said. "They're after you because you might be like him." Like him? The words echoed, unwanted. And deep inside, a new thought broke through. What if I wasn't just his son? What if I was the continuation of something I didn't even understand yet? I didn't leave the apartment for 2 days. The journal was a map now, one that led nowhere straight. Names, codes, half-sentences. I laid out everything on the floor, the journal, printed articles, photos, maps. My living room became a war room, and I stood in the middle like a general who didn't yet believe the war was real. I started making lists, who my father mentioned, who was still alive, who had vanished. Some were just names, Harper, Dell, Ren 23. Others were clearer, Carr, Julia, and someone called Lyndon. No surname, just, if Lyndon talks, we all burn. I asked Jordan. He didn't reply. Instead, an hour later, I got a knock. 2 slow taps. He looked exhausted. Same hoodie he wore back in his precinct days. He stepped inside without a word, scanned the room, nodded at the chaos. "You're in it now." "Who's Lyndon?" Jordan flinched slightly. "That name doesn't exist, not anymore." "But it meant something to my father." Jordan rubbed his face. "Lyndon was never supposed to be part of the Phoenix record. If he's in the journal, your dad was closer than we thought." "To what?" He looked me dead in the eyes. "To whatever got him disappeared." I paced the room. "Then let's find him, or whoever's left." Jordan pulled something from his pocket, a USB drive. This is from an old case I buried. Video surveillance from 03. Take a guess who shows up in a black site outside Albany? I stared. He plugged the drive into my laptop. A grainy video loaded. Static. Then, faces, guards, a man handcuffed, face down. Watch. Jordan paused the feed, zoomed in. It was my father. And next to him, a tall man, hair cropped tight, wearing military insignia. That's Lyndon? I asked. No, Jordan said. That's Carr. Before the campaigns. Before the Polish. I couldn't breathe. They knew each other. They didn't just know each other, Jordan said. They ran something, and your dad tried to blow the whistle. I sat on the floor. What now? Jordan crouched beside me. Now? We bait them. He held up a burner phone. You message Carr's campaign. Say you have something he lost in 2003. No threats, just curiosity. Are you insane? Do it smart. Do it subtle. He'll send someone. We watch who. We watch how fast. And we watch how nervous they look. I hesitated. Then picked up the phone. Typed. I found a journal that may interest William Carr. Mentions Halberd. I'd like to return it. Confidentially. I hit send. Jordan nodded. Now we wait. That night, I dreamed of my father. He was at the piano, playing something I didn't recognize. His fingers were bleeding. He looked up at me and said, If you follow this, you won't come back. But I was already walking toward him, already too far in. In the morning, the reply came, a single sentence. Meet us tonight. No copies, no games. And a location. It was the same diner where my father used to take me on Sundays, the one with the jukebox that never worked. This wasn't a message. It was a warning. But part of me smiled, because it meant one thing. They were afraid. The diner hadn't changed. Same chipped linoleum, same flickering neon, same waitress with the smoker's rasp and a name tag that just said Rita. But everything else had, especially me. I sat in the back booth, journal in a messenger bag at my side. I hadn't brought the real one, of course, just a fake I'd aged with coffee stains and heat. Jordan was parked across the street in a rental, watching. I ordered black coffee. Didn't drink it. At exactly 9 p.m. they arrived. Not Carr, 2 men, civilian clothes, military posture. One was younger, crew cut, impatient. The other, older, heavy set, all slow blinks and heavy breath. The older one sat across from me. The younger stayed near the door. You Eli Monroe? He asked. I nodded. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. Heard you found something. I placed the decoy journal on the table. I want to know what happened to my father. He didn't look at the journal. Just me. Don't we all? I waited. He didn't move. Was he killed? I asked. By Carr? By you? The younger guy shifted, reached into his coat. The older one raised a hand. No need for drama. Then leaned forward. Your father wasn't a hero, son. He was a liability. He knew things he shouldn't. Said things he couldn't prove. Got scared. He tapped the fake journal. And now you're playing his game. I said nothing. He smiled wider. You think this is new? You think you're the first to come asking? He reached into his coat. My stomach clenched, but he pulled out a phone, opened a photo. It was me, sitting in my apartment, last night, from across the street, or closer. You're already dead, Eli. You just haven't figured out what version yet. Then, calm as anything, he took the journal and stood. We'll take this. You get to leave. I froze. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Jordan had a plan. We had leverage. But I looked out the window, and the rental was gone. Jordan was gone. The 2 men walked out. I followed. No sign of Jordan's car, no trace, just wet pavement and headlights. Panic crawled into my throat. I pulled out my phone, dialed Jordan. No answer. Again. Nothing. I turned the corner, hoping maybe I'd missed him. And then I saw it. A shape slumped against the alley wall. Hoodie. Blood trailing down the bricks. "Jordan!" I dropped beside him. His mouth moved, but no sound came. His eyes flicked to my chest. I looked down. Red bloomed across my shirt. I hadn't even felt it. Footsteps behind me. I turned too slow. Someone grabbed the back of my jacket and slammed me face first into the brick. Pain exploded through my skull. Then nothing. I woke up in my apartment, alone. Shirt clean, no blood, no bag, no journal, phone wiped. Laptop gone. Like none of it had happened. But on the coffee table was one thing. A cracked mirror. My face reflected in a dozen broken angles. Unrecognizable. On the glass, written in something red, "Stay dead." I sat there for hours, knees pulled to my chest, rocking slightly, trying to piece together if I was still real. And in that silence, I finally understood. This wasn't about truth. It was about erasure. And I had already been erased. I didn't leave the apartment for 3 days. No windows, no lights, just the cracked mirror and the silence. I replayed it all, the alley, Jordan's eyes, the blood. Then, nothing. Waking up clean, untouched, like a bad dream with real scars. I checked every account, every cloud backup, gone. They hadn't just taken my files, they'd rewritten the memory of them. But they'd made a mistake. They left me breathing. On the 4th morning, someone knocked. I didn't move. Another knock. Then a voice. "Eli Monroe, my name is Marin. I think we're after the same ghosts." That got me to the door. She was 30-ish, pale coat, worn boots, sharp eyes, held up a badge, not federal, independent press. "I used to work at the Sentinel. Got too close to something. You want to talk?" I didn't answer. She reached into her bag, pulled out a photo. It was my father. But not the one I remembered. This one wore a headset, tactical gear, standing beside 2 others, one of whom was unmistakably William Carr. "I've been chasing this picture for 9 years," she said. "It's from a Phoenix training op. Idaho, 2002, off books. You weren't supposed to find your father's journal. That fire wasn't an accident." I let her in. We sat across from each other. She didn't flinch at the broken mirror or the wreckage of my living room. "You know what Halberd was?" she asked. No. It was a control operation. Behavioral targeting. High-level surveillance layered with emotional conditioning. Phoenix didn't just watch people. They rewired them. Your father signed on as a logistics analyst, but something changed. I swallowed. He tried to stop them. She nodded. Tried to leak. Got caught. But he didn't vanish. He was placed. Hidden. I blinked. "You're saying he's alive?" She hesitated. "I'm saying there's no death certificate, no witness, and Lyndon is still active." "That name again." She leaned in. "Lyndon controls what's left of Phoenix. Carr was the face. Lyndon was the spine. If your father crossed them, Lyndon would have made the call." My pulse thudded. "Then we find Lyndon." Marin smiled, tired and sharp. "That's why I'm here." We spent the next week rebuilding. She had a partial archive, notes smuggled from a retired handler, footage from a whistleblower's wife, sound files, intercepted transmissions. Patterns emerged, dates, locations, a facility outside Harrisburg, a private meeting flagged by Marin's source. This week. Codename, Ash Reclamation. "They think you're gone," she said. "We use that." I stared at the screen, the map, the faces. I didn't feel like a son anymore, or a victim. I felt like a witness. Maybe the last one. And something shifted inside me. It wasn't about revenge now. It was about making sure no one ever erased anyone again. I looked at Marin. We go together. She nodded. One shot, no second tries. I closed my eyes. And for the first time since that knock on my door, I felt it. Not peace, not clarity, just movement. Forward. We checked into a motel under fake names. She used M. Travis. I picked Jonas. My father's middle name. It felt like armor. For 2 days, we mapped the site. Ash Reclamation wasn't a building. It was a cover. A compound tucked behind an abandoned paper mill in Harrisburg. Fenced, guarded. Private security with no logos. The type that didn't ask questions and didn't write reports. Marin had a drone. Quiet, matte black. We launched it from a nearby rooftop under cover of night. The feed streamed to her tablet, grainy but clear enough. 3 figures entered the compound that first night. One of them, Lyndon. She froze the frame, zoomed. A man in his late 60s, white buzz cut, face like a collapsed monument. Same profile from 2002, she whispered. Still breathing, still running it. We started the plan. Day 3. Infiltrate the private fundraiser hosted at the Harrington Hotel. A gathering of old donors and new deals. Carr would be there. Not as a candidate, but as a kingmaker. His name wasn't on the invite, but we had confirmation. Marin forged the credentials. I played the role. Dark suit, hair slicked, voice colder. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I looked like someone who gave orders, not someone still grieving. You sure you're ready? She asked before we went in. I nodded. He called my father a traitor. Tonight we call him out. Inside, the room glittered. Laughter too loud, wine too red. People moved like chess pieces, deliberate, rehearsed. We split up. Marin worked the floor, planting bugs under tables, syncing devices to a shadow server she'd built from a stolen tower rig. I scanned for Carr. Found him near the bar, gray suit, perfect teeth, hand on the shoulder of a man I recognized from the Phoenix file archive. They were laughing. I approached slowly, waited for a pause, then said, I hear Ash is burning bright again. Carr's smile froze. The man beside him looked at me, confused. Carr covered smoothly. I'm sorry. Have we met? I stepped closer. You met my father, Jonah Monroe, in Idaho, 2002. You called him a risk. His jaw ticked, just slightly. That was all I needed. I walked away before he could recover. Marin caught me in the hallway. That was reckless. I wanted to see his face. She hesitated, then nodded. It was worth it. By midnight, we were back at the motel. Everything had been recorded. Carr's reaction, Lyndon's arrival, a brief, whispered exchange by the service elevator we isolated on the audio. He's alive? Number. But the sun's moving fast. Then it ends now. We looked at each other. They were going to erase me again, this time permanently. We had one night, one chance to take it public. I can leak it all, Marin said, but it won't stick unless you go on record. I looked at the video of my father again, the smile, the guilt, the warning. I will, I said. My voice didn't shake. Marin blinked. You sound like him. No, I said. I sound like me, finally. Tomorrow we'd walk into the storm, but tonight, for the first time, we slept without fear, because now the truth had a voice, and it was mine. They scheduled the press drop for 9 a.m., not through mainstream media. Those channels were already compromised. Marin knew a backdoor, a decentralized network of investigative journalists, whistleblower forums, encrypted feeds. Once it launched, the data would be copied, mirrored, preserved. Phoenix, Halberd, Carr, Lyndon, names, faces, dates, videos, proof. And one testimony, mine. We filmed it in a single take, no edits, just me looking into the lens. My name is Eli Monroe. My father, Jonah Monroe, disappeared in 2003. For 20 years I was told he abandoned me, lied to, watched, controlled, but the truth survived. We ended the video with the photo, the one of my father in gear, standing beside car. Behind them, the Phoenix sigil. At 8:59, Marin hit send. The file fractured into hundreds of nodes, links shared by trusted contacts, then strangers, then everywhere. Within minutes, hashtags trended, screenshots flooded timelines. Phoenix wasn't a myth anymore. It was real, documented, named. And then, the reaction. Carr's campaign manager held an emergency press conference. Fabricated, he said, digitally altered. But the footage we leaked couldn't be faked. Dated surveillance, voice matches, classified metadata. Outside the Harrington building, where Carr was scheduled for a closed donor event, the crowd gathered fast. First dozens, then hundreds, chants, signs, journalists shoulder to shoulder, security overwhelmed. Marin and I stood across the street. "We did it," she said. "No," I said. "We exposed it. It's not the same." A ripple moved through the crowd. Gasps, flashes. Carr stepped outside, flanked by aides, face tight, sweating. He raised his hands. "Lies!" he shouted. "This is foreign interference, a smear!" The crowd erupted. Then, someone hurled a folder at him. Papers spilled across the steps. One landed at his feet. My father's photo burned around the edges. He stared at it. For a moment I thought he might collapse. But instead, he turned and ran. Marin caught it on video. A perfect shot. The mighty kingmaker retreating in disgrace. People chanted my father's name. It wasn't justice. But it was the truth. Lyndon never showed. By nightfall, his private compound was burned to the ground. Arson. No casualties reported. No arrests made. The system was eating itself. I stood at the edge of the protest, hood up, unseen. Someone passed me a flyer with my own words printed across the top. I folded it and walked away. "Where will you go?" Marin asked. "I don't know." "You could stay. Help finish this." I looked at her, the only person who'd seen the whole picture and never flinched. "You will." Then I disappeared into the crowd. Not in triumph, not as a symbol, just as a man who no longer needed to search. The war wasn't over, but I was done hiding. It was raining in upstate New York. I found the cabin by memory, the one from my childhood, where Dad used to take me fishing. The dock was half rotted, the piano inside untouched, dust on the keys. I lit a fire, opened the last page of his real journal. Just one line in fading ink. "If you're reading this, I made it far enough for you to begin." I closed it, set it on the flames, watched the leather curl then collapse into ash. Outside a bird called once, and then silence.